Okay. Well, welcome everyone to our Discover and Connect webinar. So today we'll be discussing all the details necessary for the 2025 edition of Internships in the Valley. So just to start off, my name is Maya. I am the program manager for Internships in the Valley, and I'll be your go-to person if you have any questions about the application or the program in general. So quickly gonna give you an overview of what we're gonna cover today. So first, I'll go through everything about internships in the Valley, what we offer, and also go through the eligibility and application form. Next, Maggie, who is from the Netherlands America Foundation, will discuss the internship grants that they offer and then give you an overview of the J1 visa process. Then we'll have a live interview with one of our alumni members, who has a really cool story from how he went from being a student to an intern and now actually a full-time employee at the company he interned at. And then finally, we'll have a short Q&A session based off the questions you guys submitted. And then if there's time, we'll open it up to additional questions you may have. So, program background. So our program was founded in 2019 as an initiative between the Dutch consulate in San Francisco, the Netherlands America Foundation, and then the 13 research universities in the Netherlands. And these are the universities that make up the Universities of the Netherlands Association, also known as UNO. And the idea of this program was to facilitate collaboration between top performing students from Dutch universities and the startups and companies in the Bay Area, to give you guys a chance to experience the tech startup ecosystem there. Again, because the program was started in collaboration with the consulate in San Francisco, basically all of our partner companies are within the greater Bay Area region. But later you'll see how we actually do offer support across the US as well. Quick behind the scenes. So yeah, I'm Maya, the program manager for internships in the Valley. Maggie, who is in this call with us today, is the manager for the Netherlands America Foundation, and she will be your go-to person for any visa-related questions, anything about the internship grants. But yeah, preparing you before you go to the US. And then finally, we have Margot, who is the Senior Economic Policy Officer at the Dutch Consulate in San Francisco. So you guys won't actually have any direct communication with her unless you do go to San Francisco. But she is my counterpart in the Bay Area, and she's the one responsible for networking with companies in the Bay Area, meeting people from the Holland and the Valley community, and bringing on new partner companies that will be able to host you guys as interns. So, what are some things that you should know? So also want to point out that all the photos from the slides are from our interns. I think this one photo is from Yilla, so thank you, Yilla. But yeah, so what you should know, we really do focus on industry internships. So we want candidates from our program to find placements at companies or startups in the US to really experience like the fast-paced tech ecosystem that exists there. And it's an opportunity for you to apply your theoretical knowledge from your studies in an industry setting, working on a real world projects. With that said, we have had research interns get an internship through our program, or sorry, find an internship themselves, but we have just supported them with either the visa or with networking opportunities. So we don't necessarily work with research institutions, but if you find a research internship and you want support, in the city that you're going to, you can still reach out to us. Next thing, because we do work with companies, we do ask our partner companies to ensure that internships are paid. And as of now, we ask that it's at least $3,500 a month. But to be honest, most of our interns make significantly more than that. I think we even have one intern now making a bit over 9,000 a month. But do keep in mind that overall, the cost of living is significantly higher in the US, and people are paying anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a month on rent. And this is within shared housing. So yeah, everything's just a lot more expensive there. Flexible start date and duration. This is really up to you when you decide to look for an internship. When is an ideal start date for you, given your personal and academic calendar? And duration is something that can be discussed with your host company or someone that you reach out to for an internship opportunity. I do want to point out that with most companies, they do want to see interns stay for at least 6 months, just because anything less than that doesn't really give them enough time to train you and then for you to actually make impact on any of the projects you're working on within that company. US-wide support basically just means that if one of our candidates finds a really cool internship opportunity in, say, Boston, and needs support with the J1 visa and with networking and with mentorship, we will support that candidate through that whole process. With that said, again, most of our partner companies in the Bay Area, but if you find an internship independently in a different city, we can still support you. Um, Local networking opportunities. So this can be anything from your Dutch University alumni events. There could be a Dutch meetup group or Dutch drinks in the city that you're in. There could be events hosted by the NAF. So we try to keep you in the loop for any events happening in your city or state. And finally, Career Kickstarter. We have many very interesting and inspiring stories from our alumni that show how their internship experience really helped kickstart their career path, help them realize what they wanted to do next after graduating from their master's program. And in some cases, some of our interns were actually offered a full-time position at the company that they interned at, which is like the ideal situation. Here is just a visual representation of all the interns that have interned through our program. So you can see they're a bit scattered across the US, but we do have most of our interns in the Bay Area, again, because of our partner companies there. But yeah, it's really up to you where you decide you want to apply to companies at. Maybe you have some contacts on the East Coast that may be able to help you with an internship position. So just stay open-minded through the internship search process, and you never really know what comes out of a simple conversation with a colleague or a past supervisor, for example. And program highlights. So when you apply to a program, the first thing that happens after you get accepted is we will onboard you all onto our Academy platform. This is a community hub where we provide resources and guidance that helps you with each step of the internship search process. So, for example, how to optimize your professional profile, including your resume and your LinkedIn, where to search for companies, how to approach companies, things like that. Additionally, it's a chance for you to connect with other candidates that may be from your university or study the same program as you or have similar interests as you. We also offer office hour sessions where you can drop in to ask questions. And we also give webinar sessions with guest speakers who are usually our alumni members, who talk about their story of what worked for them, and what happened after their internship experience. From here, we also sometimes will post vacancies that our partner companies will share with us. And we'll post these vacancies here to see which of our candidates are interested in these positions. We'll sift through everyone that said they were interested, hand select the top candidates to promote internally to these partner companies. So that's also one way of how our interns have found placements. Once you have found an internship, whether on your own accord or via us, from being matched internally, that's where Maggie comes into play and helps with the J1 visa process, which She'll go into more detail in a little bit. Oops. And then once you're ready to go to the US, then we will help find you a mentor, preferably in the city that you'll be living in. The mentors are most times a Dutch University alumni member, either from your Dutch university, or they may be working in the same industry that you're working in. And they'll be like your go-to person if you have any questions about, I don't know, finding housing or getting along with your new colleagues or, I don't know, adapting to the work culture in the US compared to the Netherlands. So any questions like that that you may have. And they should also help you with finding networking opportunities and helping you really maximize your time at the company that you're interning at. So with that, I just want to quickly cover eligibility and application information, which you may already know. So you must be a master's student, PhD candidate, or a recent graduate, so within the last year. If you are a third-year bachelor student and you have some working experience and you're planning on doing a master's degree in the next year or so, please send us an email. We'll most likely also allow you to submit an application. We want to see a GPA of at least 7 and professional English skills, which most candidates should have if you're studying an English language master's program. Application form. You will be required to submit a US standard resume, which generally means 1 page, no photo, which is quite different from how CVs are here, and then no personal information. So that would be birthday, gender, address, things like that. But then make sure you have your contact information, so your email address, phone number, etc. Next, you will be asked to submit an academic transcript. First-year master's students can submit their bachelor's transcript. That's totally fine. Then you will be asked to link your LinkedIn profile. Please make sure your LinkedIn is up to date, it's filled in, you have a professional photo. Also make sure it's in English. This is quite an important aspect of your application just because companies in the US, if you reach out to them for an opportunity or apply to a vacancy, one of the first things they'll do is go via your LinkedIn profile, and then maybe from there decide whether they should read the rest of your application or access your resume. And finally, you'll be asked to answer a few short answer questions that just allows us to assess your motivation for joining this program. What does the application look like? There's 2 parts. Part 1 is just a short eligibility check, making sure that you're, eligible to apply to a program. If all goes well with that, you'll be bumped to part 2, which is where you can submit all the documents I just mentioned, as well as answer the short answer questions, and then some details about what type of internship you're looking for. I do notice a lot of people will submit part 1, and then they'll start part 2, but then get a bit nervous about the short answer questions and then just exit out. So to kind of mitigate that, I did copy the questions here. I'll also share these slides with you so you guys don't have to like write these down right now. But these are the questions that we will ask. First, what's your motivation for wanting to intern in the US? Yeah, why are you applying to this program? Next, you'll be asked to either describe what your internship search strategy will be or how you think an internship will contribute to your career goals. Number 3, which is very important, is this is your chance to write keywords of, say, technical skills or tools that you're comfortable or familiar with that also summarize your professional profile. This is important because we do use a keyword search function sometimes to help our partner companies find suitable candidates. So, for example, we have a biotech company that was looking for students with fermentation skills. This is where you want to be typing in fermentation so that we're able to match you better. And finally, what sets you apart from other applicants? This is like your elevator pitch. So prove to us and to maybe a future company that you would apply for why you stand out, why we should consider your application, and what makes you better than other candidates. And finally, since I get asked this a lot, this is a very general and rough timeline of what to expect for the coming months. So right now we're still in this campaign period. We have our application deadline in exactly 2 weeks. And we hope that by the end of October, we can send out a decision to all the applicants. Then we hope to onboard all the new candidates to our program, the Academy platform, by the beginning of November, where you will join a 6 week, what we call a learning journey, which is a step-by-step process of helping you through each step of the internship search process. Already by mid-November, we expect some candidates to start actively searching for internships, especially if you're looking for a summer internship for next summer. You want to already start searching in November, and I'll explain why later. Keep in mind the internship search process is very time consuming. It's challenging, it's arduous, you really need to stay motivated. So we expect that process to take anywhere from 2 to 3 months, oftentimes even more. And assuming the visa process can take anywhere from 2 to 3 months, we expect the first interns from this cohort to start an internship in the US by mid-late March. So yeah, of course, some people will be a bit earlier, some might be a bit later, but this is just to give you a timeline of how long the whole process can take. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Maggie, but I think you'll start sharing your screen, Maggie.
Yes, I will. Just give me 1 second.
I'll stop sharing mine.
Okay. Um, okay. Does this look good? Okay, great. Um, hey everyone. Good to see you all. My name is Maggie. I work at the Netherlands America Foundation. We're a nonprofit based in New York City. So we're not near the Bay Area, not in the Netherlands, but we have been a nonprofit for, I guess, about over 100 years. And what we do is we provide exchange opportunities between the US and the Netherlands. So we do that through educational exchange, cultural exchange, and what's been more relevant in the past few years is internship exchange. We started our partnership with Internships in the Valley a few years ago because we are a local representative for a US sponsor in getting a J1 visa, which means that we partner with a sponsor in the US that sponsors thousands and thousands of people around the world in having a J1 visa to intern in the US. And we represent basically all of the students from the Netherlands who want to intern in the US. We also provide scholarship opportunities for interns who want to intern in the US. We provide loans for people who are getting their master's in the US. We do a bunch of different exchange opportunities. And so today I'm just going to talk about one of our grants that has helped a handful of internships in the Valley students in the past, as well as a really broad overview of the visa process. So our Dutch to USA grant has existed for a few years now, and the idea is to provide funding for low-income students from the Netherlands to intern in the US. Specifically, it's if you come from a low-income background, meaning that you really haven't had all of the opportunities that your peers might have had to do such an experience as going abroad for an internship, especially given that the US is so expensive. So basically what happens is you have an internship and then you apply for this grant. It doesn't matter the field of study that you're in. We've had people from university labs to companies like KLM to the UN. Any background is eligible for this grant. You just have to be low income. What you get out of this is you get up to $10,000 in direct support. So that includes a living stipend of $1,500 per month for a maximum of 6 months, $1,000 for a flight, and the cost of your J1 visa at no expense to you or your host company. So we have 4 deadlines per year, so we're always accepting applications, and we also have a pretty generous funder in this. So we always have a lot of funding available in this grant program. There is technically a deadline today, but I don't know if anyone here has an internship already. If you do and you want to submit an application, I'd happily accept it through this week. But our next deadline is December 31st. It's basically the last day of each business quarter per year. And you apply for the grant first, and then if you're eligible, you'll go to a 20-minute interview with our selection committee that all takes place on Zoom, and then you'll find out the status of the grant. So just to touch upon eligibility in a bit more detail, low income is something that is pretty tricky to define. So the way we do it is we ask for a screenshot of your Duo account and we look to see specifically if you receive ad bears. If not, if you're kind of just on the cusp, we do ask for some details about your family's household income. We ask you to explain a bit more about your economic situation growing up. If your parents are employed, if you have a lot of siblings and you all kind of need funding from all of your parents, but they can't really do that for everyone, we do ask for quite a bit about your income situation. We also look at your academic record. We want to know that you have a 7.0 grade average, which is also something that you'll need to apply to internships in the Valley. And then we do ask that you either have an internship or you're really, really close to securing one. So with this Academy platform, you do have a lot of ins at host companies. So if you've already applied to a bunch and you feel like you've been interviewing and you're close to securing one, you can apply for the grant. However, it's much more favorable that you already have an internship by the time you apply for this grant. Also, you can be either a full-time student or you can be a very recent graduate. And that's what the visa guidelines say. So if you graduated in August, you have until next August to start your internship. So you can be a graduate. You don't have to be currently enrolled, but there is a grace period for that. So I'll share this link for the application in the chat. We have a QR code here as well. So you have a number of uploads required. So we're looking for your passport, information about your Duo account, your CV, your grades list, and then again, a few short answer questions. So the application is not meant to be extremely time consuming, but you will need some time to spend on it. And then eligible applicants go to a selection committee, and so we accept them all year long. We really try and get results as quickly as possible to you, but our selection committee is volunteer based, so it's not something that we can do super quickly. We also have another internship grant called the Peter Grotenhouse Life Sciences Grant. So applications are not open right now. They closed about a month ago, but they'll reopen again next summer. So if you're a student of life sciences and you have an internship lined up, then this might be something interesting for you. Unfortunately, we only have funding for one student per year to get this grant, but I will advertise it on the Academy platform as well in the coming months. So you, if you're interested in applying, you can apply. So this is just going to be a really, really broad overview of the visa process. This is something the NAF also provides. So basically, if you get a grant from our organization, your visa is covered. If not, then we'll ask you or your host company to pay for the visa. So I'm just going to say that up front because it can be pretty expensive. So most importantly is allowing time for this process. I've seen people who get really stressed out because unfortunately, like there's not enough time for them to apply before starting their internships. I'll do everything I can to make sure the process moves along quickly, but there's only so much I can do. So I would say allow as much time as possible and communicate that as well to your host company when you're applying for internships that you will need to go through a long-ish process to get your visa. So I said before, but we work with a US sponsor called CIEE, and the NAF is a local representative for students from the Netherlands. So it's also for international students in the Netherlands. If you're a German student in the Netherlands, we can also help you with your visa as long as you go to a Dutch university. So we can start the visa process once you have an internship. So if you are in like the closing stages of interviewing for an internship, we would rather you wait until you actually have the internship confirmed. What's great about this is health insurance is included in this visa, so you don't have to worry about that. It's more so emergencies instead of routine appointments, but that is included in the cost. And what happens is basically Maya will connect you with me and we will start the process of your visa. You'll have an application opened for you on this online platform. You'll complete that. It's pretty straightforward. It's really nothing too complex. And then your host company will have to create a training plan about your internship and what it's going to be about. I'll review everything before submission so that CIE can approve it. And then they'll issue what is called the DS 2019. That is basically the document you need to be eligible for an internship and be eligible for a J1 visa. Once you have the DS 2019, it's very, very likely that you will be able to get a J1 visa. But before that, you do have to make an appointment at the Amsterdam consulate to get your visa. So this is the general overview that I just talked about. I would say the first two steps they can take around 2 weeks if you and your supervisor are really quick to fill out the application. CIE will approve you and issue the DS 2019. That takes just a couple of days. You download that online and then you complete another form. You schedule your consulate interview. That's probably what takes the longest is getting an interview with the consulate. Right now, wait times are like at least 3 weeks. Sometimes people can request expedited interviews, but that is a complete uncontrollable. I have no control over it, unfortunately. So that's just something you have to basically wait in line for the virtual line online when you make your appointment. But then a week after, you'll receive your visa in the mail, and then you can take that and travel to the US. You have to have your appointment within the EU, and you can't travel to the US until you have your visa physical copy with you. I would just be really mindful that you will be going through borders and customs in the US, and having all of the documents lined up is extremely important to ensure that there's no issue getting in, and then there will be no issue on your future visas should you come back to the US. And I think that's it for me. So I'm going to stop with this.
Maybe you can just continue sharing your screen.
No, sure. Yeah.
And then I want to give some people an opportunity to ask any questions related to the visa. I'm going to ask one that I saw in the chat. Does temporary protection count for the Dutch to USA grant? So someone is a refugee from Ukraine. Do you know if they would qualify?
I believe so. I'd have to check in my documents because I know this has come up before, but we haven't had any applicants yet.
Okay.
So if that person could actually just maybe I can get their email or something, that would be great.
Cool. And then yeah, someone asked if the Dutch requirement is for just the grant or the whole internship program. It's just for the Dutch to USA grant. So our
Mhm.
program is for Dutch internationals. And then Maggie, can you answer someone's question about the Duo account? They asked, what is the Duo account?
I wish I knew how to mention it in Dutch, but it's like the financial aid basically for students of Dutch universities. So I did not go to Dutch University, but to my knowledge, you can log in and like take a screenshot of the grants and financial support that you receive. If anyone else wants to chime in with that, that's perfectly fine. But I've seen a number of screenshots before with that.
And there's one question that says, does the NAF support J1 visa process in Germany or other countries that may have earlier consulate spots?
Yeah, so if you go through us to get your visa, you can make an appointment in another EU consulate. Um, we encourage Amsterdam because if you have a permanent address in Amsterdam, then they'll send it to you. If you live in the Netherlands and you get an appointment in like Brussels, I think you have to go back there and get it. So that's just more of like a travel time thing. If they'll mail it to you if you're in the Netherlands, but if not, you probably have to go back.
Okay, does anyone else have any visa related questions? I see other questions, but we'll address those at the end of the call.
One thing I quickly wanted to add is you cannot to change like your location of your visa request. So like you have to fill out the entire form, and when you start the form, you have to say I'm going to request it at the Amsterdam consulate. So it's not like you can look for
Mhm.
an open spot in a different consulate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we had an intern recently who just filled out the application for multiple consulates, but he'd had to do the whole process over and over again. But I think he was just very desperate to get there as soon as possible. Can international students at a Dutch university with a student visa apply for this internship? Yeah, so the Dutch and international are all eligible. And one last question for Maggie. What are common reasons for which visas get rejected, such as nationality?
Um, Visas getting rejected. So I really haven't seen this too much. The most common reason is probably someone's host company is ineligible to host them. And that's usually when it's like a vocational type of internship. So I know someone once wanted to do like a fashion related internship, but it was like too hands-on. It wasn't educational enough. I think with internships in the Valley, you're generally fine because you'll be working and like doing a real academic exchange in your internship. I know one person is from an Iranian background. Unfortunately, they got rejected for their visa. I think it was due to that, but I am not really able to speak on that. Um, yeah, so the visa getting rejected is really not something I've seen too much. Generally, if you're at a Dutch university and you have an internship that is like with an established company in the US, generally you'll be fine. Um, but I think I'd look at your internship first to make sure you're eligible before going on. I can usually spot what might be a reason for rejection. So it's unlikely that you go through the process and then receive a no, with so many people looking at it. Like I would look at it, CIE would look at it. Generally, you'd be fine.
Yeah. And speaking of nationality, I think we also had one intern who's Russian. It never got rejected, but it was put on
Mm.
processing for a really long time to the point where she ended up canceling it because she couldn't wait any longer to do the internship. But at the same time, we have also had a Russian intern get a successful J1 visa and also now an H1B visa. So again, I think it also depends on the time and yeah, different situations. I will continue with the webinar by interviewing Yila, and then we'll address the rest of the questions at the end of the session. So Yila, welcome. Thank you for joining us last minute. Our initial alumni was sick, and so we did a quick change around, but Yila has a very interesting story, so I'm glad he was able to join. So yeah, maybe Yila, you can start off with just a short intro. Yeah, who you are, where you came from, etc.
Sure. So I'm Yile. I joined internships in the Valley, I think it was in 2021 already, and then 2022 was my internship. So I did a bachelor's degree and a master's degree at the University of Amsterdam, both in artificial intelligence. Um, and for me, I really wanted to do an internship in the US. I mean, I've always wanted to live in the US, so that was a big part of it. And then also because COVID took away a lot of my study years, basically. I was like, I need to do something to just delay my master's instead of just finishing it within 2 years. So that's why I applied for internships in the Valley and ended up getting an internship there. And I still am working at the same company full time right now. Haven't finished my master's yet, but uh,
I didn't know that.
maybe at some point. So yeah, basically the US was only really the only choice for me as per like an internship. I've done a lot of internships in the Netherlands and in India, and I've always wanted to go to the US, so it was a clear choice for me. I've also worked at a lot of bigger companies before. For example, in India was Infosys. It's like 300,000 people or something. It's huge. And then in the Netherlands, a few other bigger companies. I never really liked that experience. It's all it has its advantages, but it's all quite it's not very personal. So when I went into this process, I was really looking for startups, which is pretty difficult, especially back when I was searching because we were just getting back to like working in the office. So a lot of companies were really busy with like, getting workers to the office again and not really focusing on international students. Um, so it took me quite a while to find an internship, just, emailing around. I first started on LinkedIn. just emailing companies and reaching out. Not at all successful. I don't think I ever got a reaction, maybe one, but it really didn't pan out. The thing that worked for me was on the website Y Combinator. It's a website for startups. It's like a program in the US that funds startups basically. So if you go to their website, I'll link it later. You just have a whole big list of like startups. They also host different batches each year, and you just you read about the startup and you see if you like it. And I emailed about I think 30 of them and got like four responses and three different interviews pretty quickly. The advantage of a startup is you email the CEO probably. You don't like apply through a setup way that like Google or Facebook or whatever has. So it's a lot more personal. Also, there's the interviews are generally quite easy, given that they don't really have a whole process for it yet. It's more like, do you seem like a nice person? So I really like that sort of process. And then I joined Rhythm in August of 22 for a year-long internship in Redwood City, which is in the Bay Area. Um, yeah, it was actually very fun. It was so fun that I decided to stay. So after that, I had to move out because I didn't have a visa. So I've been working from the Netherlands since. I mean, I've been in the US a lot on like tourist visas, but officially working from the Netherlands. And I recently got an H-1B, which means I can work in the US. So I get to work there again. And I just really generally enjoy startups a lot more. To me, I mean, we have like a team of 5 people in the Bay Area. The company itself is about 20 people, but it's remote first, so the Bay Area is like 5 people. You just, you become great friends and you have dinner together and I don't know, you have access to the company credit cards. Like it's all very personal and it's like, you hang out with the CEO and in fact, the car I drove for a year was the car of the CEO or his second car because he didn't use it. So that's more of the experience I really like.
And
So
what
I definitely recommend looking for startups.
yeah, what was the process from you being an intern, obviously doing really well, to being offered a full-time position? Like, did you initiate it? Did they initiate it?
Yeah, it was a little bit from both sides. I really wanted to stay, and they really wanted to keep me. So we tried looking for, ways to keep working there, which is actually pretty difficult because the H-1B, which is sort of the general visa you can get, it's only once a year and it's a lottery. So you just gotta apply, and then you either get picked or you don't. And even after you get picked, there's a whole process to go through. This year there was about I think a 23% chance to get picked, and the year before that, when I also applied, it was about a 7% chance.
Oh,
They
wow.
changed some rules, so the percentage went up significantly, but still, it's only like about 25% chance to get picked.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's difficult to stay if you want to stay, but it's possible. I know some other people who also did internships in the Valley. They were a bit older. They were like doing a PhD. For example, he got an O1, which
Mhm.
is a lot easier to get if you have the required skills. O1 is more for like very skilled people, not necessarily just graduate students. There's no lottery there. You can just apply, but you need to have like you need to show that you're really good at what you do, which is difficult.
Yeah.
It's like the visa that you get if you have a Nobel Prize.
And yeah, can you speak more about just living in the Bay Area? Because I know you were quite active with meeting other interns, attending Holland in the Valley networking events and things like that.
Yeah, so
I show some
I
pictures.
live in Redwood City, which is pretty close to Stanford. When I first moved there was a lot of interns that moved at the same time. I was one of the first, and shortly after me, there were a few other ones. And then directly, like I think a month after I moved there, we had an event at Stanford with the Dutch Queen and all kinds of cabinet ministers, etc., all hosted by the consulate. And then afterwards, there were also a ton of different consulate events which they invite you to. So in that way, it's really easy to sort of stay connected. There's also a very, very big Dutch community in the Bay Area. last King's Day, for example. I mean, every King's Day they celebrate King's Day in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. I volunteered there to help.
Yeah,
So
Maggie,
it's
if you go
quite,
next slide, there's some photos.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the left one actually is with Robert Dijkgraaf, which was the previous Minister of Education, and three other interns. And then the top one is at my work with my coworkers. And then the right one was this past King's Day this year in Golden Gate Park. So there's a lot of stuff to do, and I find it pretty easy to sort of, stay active socially. There's a lot of events, and also the Bay Area, it helps that almost everyone there is like an immigrant, basically, either from within the US or from somewhere else. So they're all looking for friends, they're all looking for stuff to do. Um, so yeah, there's plenty of stuff to do there.
And what made you decide to, so like some interns will do an internship as part of their master's requirement or for their thesis. Some will even do it after they graduate. What made you decide to just take a break from your master's and do this?
Yeah, I mean, just like I mentioned, it was mainly like my bachelor was a lot remote because of COVID, like the entire second year and almost the entire third year. And then my first year master's I really enjoyed, but I was like, I don't want to finish it already. So I actually got into an exchange in University of British Columbia, and I also got into internships in the Valley, so I had to pick one of the two. So I did this just really to sort of extend my master's. Now it's sort of an indefinite extent, but yeah.
And do you think you'll ever go back to finish your master's? Or you think,
I have 10 years the time to finish it. I just need to write my thesis to finish it, but phew, yeah, we'll see.
do you think it'll be possible to write your thesis during like while working full time?
Yeah,
No,
so actually when I
internship
did my
then.
internship, the idea was to also write my thesis. I would not recommend doing that at a startup. Mainly because first of all, in a startup, you don't really have a defined role. Like you're, especially if this it's like, 20, 30 people, you really do a lot of things. You don't have time or the energy to work on a thesis. When I joined, like the data was in Google Sheets. Like you can't really do AI stuff with Google Sheets. So if you do really want to do your thesis or something at an internship, I think it's better to do it at a bigger company because they have like they're used to this. They have done that before. They know how to handle it. And you don't really have the feeling of, the company needs to grow, the startup needs to, well, not go bankrupt. So you need to work on the product and not on your thesis.
And did you attend any networking events through your startup?
Yeah, so because we're a health-based startup, and there's like a huge health scene in the Bay Area. So there's this biocom, like it's a group where all these health companies they sign up and they invite you to events. So I went with the guy you see in the picture in the white shirt, the top picture. He was our lab person, and he we went to a lot of different events like through Rhythm. But I think the majority of the events were through the consulates. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, anything else you want to speak of about working at a startup, or now that you have worked at a startup, maybe what CEOs look for in an intern, how candidates should reach out to CEOs of a startup, like what would make them look at their application or consider them?
Yeah, so what I think helps, I mean, so when I interviewed with Rhythm, I was like employee number 6, so it was really, really startup. So when I interviewed with them, it wasn't even technical or anything. They just wanted to get to know me, and just, you know, let me tell them a bit about what I did before. But there was no like technical interview, there's no coding required or whatever. Um, I generally think that's the better way to do it, but I also experience that in other startup interviews. They don't really, it's not like you have to do lead codes when you're interviewing a tech job, or they really ask you technical questions. It's more of, are you a person? Are you willing to learn? Because a startup really requires you to, be willing and be able to learn and adapt very quickly in whatever you do. So I feel like if that fits with you, you definitely should try to work at a startup because you learn a lot from it. And I think the easiest way to do that is just email them personally and don't make the email too long, but also convey that sort of the visa is taken care of by the NAF because especially these startups, they don't know really the visa process. Most of these people are, they're US citizens. They don't even know really anything about US visas. Neither did my company. But if you tell them like, there's just a fee associated with it and, a training plan, but that's quite straightforward, then they're willing to do that. And for a company, a few $1,000s in fee or whatever, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just try to mention that that's taken care of, and then try to talk about yourself. And I think more soft skills are important at startups than really knowing the technical stuff.
Yeah, I can second that. We spoke with a startup recently and the founder as well, like explained the kind of skills he was looking for, but what he cares about the most is just a personable person, someone they can get along with, understanding that a lot of skills can be taught as well. Yeah, so I think just getting on with the team because I guess you work so closely when you're on such a small team.
Yeah, it's all you all work together. And when I joined the company, I only knew like the stuff I was taught in university, which was like Python, for example, only AI stuff and a lot of math. And then sort of our company goals switched, and I needed to do different stuff that I had never done before. So then you got to dive into that and you got to learn that because yeah, you can't like fit your role for what you can do. You really have to fit what the company needs.
Yeah. So I'd like to now open it up to see if anyone had any questions for Yila. It could be about his experience, working at a startup, anything like that. Let's see
Here's
if
one question that says, from your experience, is there a large difference in the internship stipend salary received when working for a startup compared to larger company? Could you easily afford the cost of living? Um, I found that there wasn't I mean, sure, there's a big difference if you're an intern at like Google or Meta, but that's not a lot of people. The majority of bigger companies that, are not the top five tech companies, they pay quite similar to a startup. The startup maybe a little bit less. I earned $8,000 a month when I was an intern. That's completely fine. You pay about $2,000 a month on rent, and then gotta rent a car and something else. But it's not too bad. Um, I've heard a lot of people that earned like 5,000. They also were completely fine. Um,
Yeah, I'd say that people working at startups actually make more money than the
Yeah, I
company.
mean, when I interviewed with my startup, he literally asked me, "What do you want to earn?" Like, and I was like, I mean, I don't know. Before that, I never really had a job, just some other internships. This was more of like a job internship a whole year long, not like 3 months. So I was just Googling what like other people earned, and I told him like, well, it's around $100,000. And he was like, okay, sure. So I think that's before taxes.
Yeah.
So I was left with around $6,000 after taxes a month. You don't have to pay all kind of US taxes when you're an intern, so that helps.
And so you had more than enough money to live
Yeah,
semi-comfortably. Yeah.
I had like $4,000 a month after taxes and rent.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Any other questions for Yila before I go to our final section? Um,
I have one. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
But one small question for Jille. How come you decided to not finish your master's before applying for an internship in the US? Because it would
Um,
be a bit
well, it
easier.
was mainly because I finished. So I actually, when I joined internships in the Valley, like basically this, but then 3 years ago, I just started my master's because it was somewhere in December and I started in September. And then I relatively quickly found Rhythm. I think I found them like in March, and they were like, can you join tomorrow? I was like, no, I want to finish my first years with my courses. Because I was like, after that, I just need to write my thesis because our thesis is pretty big. So, you can also do that at a company. So it's like I can finish my master's that way. So I finished my first year and then moved to the US with the idea I can finish my master's there or after. but then I stayed, and yeah.
Yeah, I do find getting the timing perfect is really difficult. Like sometimes we'll have interns who want to start an internship in November, but then the company can't host them until January. So in that sense, everyone just has to be a little bit flexible in either, doing what Yila did and just cutting things short to pursue the internship, or being patient, accepting that you'll maybe have 2 months off, not doing courses or anything in the Netherlands, and then starting your internship. Yeah, so I think flexibility is very key. And then one more question, Yula, someone asked, yeah, working at a startup, were you able to receive enough guidance to get yourself settled at the company?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that bothers me most about a startup is, so one, we're a completely remote startup. So everyone is remote, even in the US, apart from the few people that live in the Bay Area. And then also I'm the only engineer at the company. So no, there's no guidance. ChatGPT is guidance, I guess. But no, you got to figure it all out yourself. But even if you do have other people, like I know other people at startups, and if there are other technical people, yes, you can ask them for help. But especially at a startup, you are expected to figure out a lot of this stuff by yourself. Like you don't really have a manager to ask or go to. So you just, you got to figure it out. And of course, if you're stuck, you can ask questions if there's someone to ask questions to. In my case, there isn't. So you just, you're completely by yourself, which is difficult and annoying, but you also learn a lot more from it than asking questions to people. The question is if you learn it in the correct way, which no one has given you feedback. So
Yeah, I guess it takes a special type of personality to be able to survive in a startup.
yeah, and especially smaller startups, because I know some people that are like in scale ups or even startups with like 50 people. That's already a slightly different story, but being really like sub 10 employee, it's difficult.
Yeah. Um, I will just continue on to the last few questions that you guys have submitted, and then we'll leave the last few minutes of the webinar for any additional questions for any of us. One question that got asked a lot was if international students are eligible to apply. So yes, you can be Dutch or international as long as you're from one of the affiliated universities.
Can I chime in? Sorry, just quickly on that, because I think I saw some people ask about the Dutch to USA grant too. So the jury looks for people who are a Dutch national or permanent resident, or you're going to like become a citizen of the Netherlands. So if you are just in the Netherlands for like grad school or something, they're probably not going to accept that because they want someone with pretty established Dutch roots.
Yeah. Thanks, Maggie. And then the person who asked about if refugees are also eligible, just make sure you email Maggie. She just put her email address in the chat. Another common question is which fields and sectors are internships offered? So for our program, we encourage people from all backgrounds to apply because again, we don't know, how active you'll be with your search, what context you may already have with finding an internship. But with that said, because we work mainly with companies in the Bay Area, there is a strong demand for tech, engineering, sometimes even business related internships. So we do find that candidates from those backgrounds have a higher success rate than other academic backgrounds. Additionally, based on previous cohorts, we have found that students with a psychology, medicine, or law background struggle a little bit more with finding opportunities just because there's different legislation on how those fields, yeah, like how companies in those fields run things in the US versus in Europe. Again, that doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it'll be a lot more difficult. Best way to secure an internship. So, like Yula spoke a little bit, there's one approach where you just apply to a lot of vacancies on LinkedIn or reach out to companies. I do hear that people have a very low success rate via LinkedIn just because companies in the US, they receive so many messages and applications that it's common for them to just not respond to you at all. Don't be discouraged by that. That's just the nature of how it is. Another method that many interns found to be successful is just really, really tapping into your network. So starting a conversation with some friends, classmates, professors, ex-supervisors. Maybe you have family in the US. Maybe you did study abroad in the US. So just starting to talk to people about what you're looking for because you never really know where one conversation can lead you. We have some interns who, from talking to their supervisor, connected them with their ex-colleague in the US and was offered an internship that way, for example. And then, of course, there's the internal recruiting, but that's a bit more in our control rather than your control, because that's just going to be depending on what vacancies are available at our partner companies. Um, Someone also asked a question about summer internships. So yes, of course, we offer summer internships. We do find that bigger companies that offer these very structured summer internship programs will usually start recruiting or post their vacancies already in November. So for example, one of our partner companies, IFF, so they have a bioscience summer internship program, and they already ask us to send them some candidates by November. Um, at startups and smaller companies, they don't have structured summer internship programs, but I would say maybe January, February next year, you can start reaching out to them saying that you're interested to join them for a summer internship. And finally, the costs involved with this program. Maggie basically covered this, but joining our program has, no cost to you. The visa has some associated costs. Of course, the main visa fee is covered by the company, but you will be responsible for the service fee and the Amsterdam consulate appointment fee, but those are maybe around
Yeah.
200 each.
Yeah, the CVIS fee is $220. That's basically like a tracking number for you in the US. And then it's about 185 euros. I'm typing this actually as we talk for the consulate appointment fee. And then the minimum for the visa for like if you're going for 6 months is around like 1,300. So it's like you can expect to tell a company they should expect to pay minimum of 13, probably a maximum of about 2,800. It's usually not much more than that, but it does include your health insurance too, which
Yep.
is expensive in the US.
And then we also do try to tell our interns that, before you go to the US, make sure you have a little bit of savings to cover your flight, and then your first few weeks of accommodation and living, because, until you get your first paycheck, basically. And that was all I had for the questions, but I do see a lot of things in the chat. So I'll go through those. And then Yila and Maggie, you guys can also jump in if you can answer the question. So deadline for applying, that will be the 14th of October, so in 2 weeks. And that's the deadline to apply to our program. I also do want to clarify that if you get accepted into our program, that does not guarantee that you have an internship placement. Our program is there to support you for the internship search, and possibly we will help recruit you internally, but it is really in your hands, how you search for an internship and how active you are in that process. Yeah, thanks, Yela, for answering some of the questions in the chat. Let's see. Sonia asked if you can do internship as part of your curriculum. Yes, you can. So when you do that, you have to first discuss with your internship supervisor at your university to make sure that the internship you found is eligible. And then make sure you confirm with your company supervisor that it's okay that you write a report or a thesis or something on your internship. But yeah, we've had a few interns who have done that and it has been completely fine. Let's see. Yeah, with big tech companies, do personal researches. Oh, I'm not quite sure what elite code is. Do you know
It's like a coding exercise that a lot of big tech companies use to see if you can code well.
Okay, yeah, so I don't have an answer to that, and I don't think you do because you haven't worked at a big tech company, Yella.
No. I
Um,
try to avoid lead codes like the plague.
Leonk asked about a confirmation email. I've received a few emails that of people trying to confirm if we've received their application. I don't know why this feature is not working, but you can send me an email and I can give you a confirmation that we have received your application. Wei Wei asked about the sponsorship. Maggie has already responded. GPA of 7 is not very strict. If you have a GPA a little bit less than 7, just send us an email with, explaining why and a motivation as to why your application would still be competitive amongst other candidates when applying to internships in the US. Lydia asked about a law graduate. Truth be told, we haven't had any law students find internships through our program. Again, we do find that with law and medicine students, it is much, much more difficult. We have tried to help law students by showing some legal tech companies, but I don't think anyone was successful in their application that way. All right. Last question from David. Yeah, so if you find an internship individually, you can still reach out to me and Maggie, and you can
Mhm.
still apply for the grant. That's completely fine. So even if you guys find an internship completely externally, but you just need help with the J1 visa, or you want a mentor, or you want to be part of this community, you can still reach out to us and we'll still support you. And yeah, biotech, there is a strong demand right now. We also have a few biotech companies that are looking for interns. So yeah, biotech, there are many internship opportunities. Same with data science. I think anything tech related, there's a stronger demand. Also more competition, but the demand is also there.
Yeah. And maybe you mentioned this, but I have heard a lot of people have success in just researching labs that they're interested in the US and just emailing them, emailing the lab PI or lab director. But it's important to just be clear about what you're looking for. Say you have potential sponsorship through the NAF. You want to go from this state to this state. Just make it easy for the people who are on the other end to understand exactly what you want out of this. And that cold emailing has definitely worked before.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna stop recording. I think I made it almost by 6. Sorry for rushing towards the end. I will